Oh, it's you again. Welcome back. In this week's episode of YouTube Art School, I'm going to tell you about a rule that very few know about. And it's going to change how you approach learning art, or most other things for that matter. It's the rule that I unknowingly kind of followed when I was younger, and what allowed me to start working in the game industry at 19 years old, and then join Blizzard Entertainment back in the good old days. By the time I was 22, at the time the youngest artist at the company. And I'm not just saying this to brag, all of you know this if you're a subscriber already. I'm saying this to highlight just how powerful this rule is. And I think the best part is that it applies to so much more than just art. What I'm referring to is the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. Want to know what this is all about and how you can apply it to your art to learn much faster? Oh, quick, class is starting, we're gonna be late. All right, class is in session. Pay attention. As artists, or as anyone learning a new skill for that matter, how we learn makes all the difference when it comes to how fast we can learn. You can study and practice poorly and achieve poor, slow results, or you can practice well and achieve great results much faster. It's not just about how much you practice, it's about how well you practice. Quality over quantity applies when it comes to studying too. Today, I'll explain how the 80-20 rule can help you achieve great results, but with very little work and time invested relative to most other people. How you can turn way up the quality of your studies. There aren't any real ways around practicing a lot to get better at something, but this rule is as close to a cheat as it will ever get. The fact that it's not familiar to most people will give you a huge advantage if you apply it, and an advantage that I've personally used, and that you'll want to have in the crowded art industry. So then, what is the 80-20 rule? Very simply put, it's the rule that says that for any outcome, roughly 20% of the effort is responsible for 80% of the results. And then to get that last 20% of results, you'll need to spend 80% of your efforts. This is a little abstract, but in real life, this often applies. For example, around the world, roughly 20% of people contribute 80% of the taxes. So there are fewer wealthy people, but they contribute much more. And then fun fact about my business, but around 20% of sellers on QBrush contribute 80% of all sales. Or how we use 20% of what we know as artists to draw or paint 80% of the art that we create, right? It's pretty rare to see artists do vastly different things from one piece to the next. Usually, you'll find clear similarities. At this point in my career, I know how to draw a ton of stuff, but most of the time, I'll still use only about 20% of my visual library, 20% of what I know to draw the vast majority of what I enjoy drawing. This also means that technically it could take only 20% of the time that it took me to get to where I am today and achieve 80% of the results that I'm able to produce. See where this is going? This rule also applies to my YouTube channel directly, where 80% of my videos will do okay, while 20% of the videos will blow up and contribute 80% of my total views. You want to focus on that 20% of effort, delivering 80% of the outcome. And hopefully this video becomes part of those few videos that carry most of the weight. I can only hope. So we want to focus and maximize what matters. I'm counting on you. And before I explain how you can use that rule in two different ways to get an edge over the competition, an even better edge is what you learn and the structure that you go about with your studies. It's hard to find, but I've done the hard work for you and put together a complete art education program to give you, as an artist, all the tools that you would possibly need to create whatever your mind can imagine. Whether it's fan art like I'm doing in this video or original art like I usually do, I'm celebrating 5 years of art school this month with a massive sale, so check out the link in the video description to get the program at the cheapest it's been before the price goes up next month. I don't want you to miss out. All right, so the first thing to keep in mind here would be to have a clear goal. If you do, there's a lot of stuff that we can filter out of your studies to really focus on what we need and what we need only. I'll take my own art as an example. I think it's no secret that I prefer drawing characters over anything else. That was also the case when I was younger, and one thing that I had going for me was laziness. Laziness, in my case, manifested in how little I wanted to study, or specifically study art. I wanted the results, I loved art, but I refused to study the traditional way. I wasn't interested in any studies just for the sake of studying something. Whatever I studied had to have a direct and immediate application to my art. And I'll call this way of practicing art the explorer's path. Basically, you jump into whatever you want to draw or paint kind of blindly. And then you figure out how to complete the task as you run into different walls, different obstacles. You're only ever focused on the problem directly in front of you. This works if you have a clear goal, since that thing that you'll need to learn is what you'll be drawing a lot of in the future. I personally enjoy drawing characters with a heavy focus on design, so that's kind of all I did. I had to figure out how to do it the first time around and had a lot of walls that I needed to get over. Once I did figure it out though and learned the few skills that I needed to draw simple characters and simple poses with cool armor, then all I had to do was move on to the next character, and well, lo and behold, the same skills that I focused on the first time around were still very relevant this time again, so the process went a lot faster. All my future characters used about 80% of the same knowledge each time, and I would reuse similar proportions, similar anatomies, similar armors, similar faces, yet all slightly different, and this allowed me to be very prolific with somewhat limited knowledge in my younger years. In a sense, I really polished my recipe, so much so that I got hired as a professional very young. Don't ask me to draw environments then, though. I was only focused on character design, so that's all I knew. But in my case, the goal, justified the means. Now, the other way of practicing that I'll call the dealer's path. And by the way, both path names are completely made up. Well, the dealer's path, as I call it, works great if you don't have as clear of a goal. Like if you don't want to be as hyper-focused as I was with characters, for example. Basically, you'll want to only study things that you'll be able to apply in multiple scenarios. If you can learn one thing and apply it to 2 drawings, that's a good deal. Hence the name. You cut your practice time in half since you won't have to learn the same thing twice. How to draw hair? Nope, that's too specific. Instead, learn how to draw fabrics and folds. If you can draw that, you'll be able to draw hair guaranteed. Not any kind of folds though, of course. Like, does knowing how to draw a pile of fabric on the ground really help you? Probably not. You probably won't draw that too often. I'd argue learning to draw generic garments, like pants, capes, and shirts, should allow you to draw pretty much any outfit by mix and matching the characteristics from those 3. That should be a much more useful skill when drawing an average character. And what's cool in this example is that the same logic applies to hair, so you should be able to draw hair fairly easily with the same knowledge that you already have. No need to focus on hair specifically. For anything that you learn, ask yourself if it's a good deal, if you'll be able to reuse the knowledge a lot or not very often. Focus on knowledge that you'll be able to reuse the most often. With my students, I always hammer down on the importance of practicing the fundamentals like gesture drawing and anatomy if you like drawing characters. Practicing just those 2 skills will allow you to draw monsters, creatures, and animals too, since, we share 95% of our anatomy with most animals. I don't know about monsters, but you see what I mean. It'll also improve how well you can shade without even practicing shading, simply thanks to the fact that you're getting better at imagining volumes in space in your head with anatomy practice. You're also getting better at lighting without realizing it for the same reason. If you think of it in terms of workout, it's like choosing a compound exercise to target multiple muscles at once rather than isolating a single muscle. It's different from the explorer's path, but it works just as well. And that's actually what I do nowadays. Progress comes a little slower, but in exchange you build skills that will make you a better artist all around, not as specialized. In my case, I chose to specialize early to get a job as soon as possible and then diversify later. And it worked out pretty well. If you think back to elementary school years, what do you really remember from it? How to count, how to write, but not much else, I would guess. Most of it, I'm sure close to 80%, is just knowledge that we don't usually use, so it gets forgotten. 80% of elementary school was a waste of time. And then same goes for traditional art schools, where they just teach you a bunch of random topics that have no clear practical use in real life. In my art school program, for example, just like with all my videos here on YouTube, I always try to focus on that 20% of content that will deliver you guys with the most benefits. I would guess that's the reason the channel is doing so well and why I'm able to make a good living just teaching art, right? Short, easy to digest content, but that has long-lasting and broad implications. I try applying the 80-20 rule to most of what I do in life and in my art, of course, and time again, it proves to be a good decision. I I highly recommend it. Next time you sit down to learn art, ask yourself if what you're working on is helping you solve an immediate problem with a painting, or if it'll have at least multiple uses in the future. If the answer is no or not really, then you're probably not optimizing your time properly and diminishing the quality of your studies, which will result in you wasting more time. Don't be a loser. Use the 80-20 rule. If you do, you'll start improving a lot faster while spending the exact same amount of time doing art, maybe even less time. And maybe you're already doing this in other areas of your life without realizing it. Maybe you only watch 20% of YouTube videos and skip most of the rest, yet are able to extract most of the information. I hope you're not doing this with my videos though. But yeah, if you have any other ways to improve productivity and speed up learning, share them in the comments. I love this stuff. Our time on this planet is limited, so any way you can save time is the same as extending your life. Living more with the same amount of time others get. YOLO!